Great. And it's an honor to be here. It's a real pleasure as well. The key today, and what we're going to talk about is Industry 4.0. Now, if you haven't seen 4.0, haven't seen that thrown around and everything else, that we're in what's considered the fourth major industrial revolution. The first was the basic industrial revolution. Then along came mass production, then electricity, and now we're in the era of automation and data augmentation. And Industry 4.0 says basically, you got to keep up or you're going to be left behind. That's the argument for Industry 4.0. And a lot of times, though, we find ourselves in the uncomfortable position or untenable position of feeling like, I don't know if I'm left behind or not, because I'm not sure that there's an easier, quicker, better, more efficient, more effective way to do this. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you find that more effective path? And one of the keys here is without throwing away the baby with the bathwater. By the way, just for those of you who have never seen me before, we haven't chatted before, I love the etymology of the English language. Throwing out the baby with the bathwater is actually a literal phrase from back in the 1800s. And back in the 1800s, we would keep a tub of hot bath water, and the first person who'd get to take the bath would be Dad. He would go in and he'd get a bath, and now the water would be a little bit murky because of all the soap and all the grime off that. Then Mom, and then the kids. By the time you got to the baby, the water would be just thick as mud. It would be hard to even see through the water. Hence the term, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's where that actually comes from. Now, we have moved way past all that. We're living in the future. We have showers. But we actually also have an environment where, well, one of the big concerns is we're trying to be new, when sometimes old approaches are the best approaches. Now, not the whole bathwater thing. I don't think that's a best approach, but I do think we can be looking into the future and win in Work 4.0. Work 4.0. Welcome to the days of automation and data augmentation. Now, Work 4.0. When it comes to Work 4.0, you're trying to figure out ways to basically let other tools do the work for you. That's what we're looking at right now. Just kind of an industrial revolution up to the electric revolution to now. Back in the days of the early industrial revolution, do you know how often we used to actually clean our rugs? Yeah, how often we used to clean our rugs? For many people, it was twice a year. You'd drag them out in the spring, you'd take them back out in the fall, and you'd beat the snot out of them, and then put them back in the house. Now, move forward, electrical revolution. Ooh, we have vacuum cleaners, hoovers, that we just run all over everything. How cool to be us. Welcome to the future. Digital. The land of the Roomba. Yeah. Things have evolved in Work 4.0. We have found ways to be more efficient. And a friend of mine recently bought a Roomba. And he was telling me, he said, oh, it's a life changer. It has just made my life so much easier because I could never, ever feel like I was doing it right when I vacuumed my own apartment. He said, now I just turn the Roomba on and I leave and I come home and my apartment's clean. And he was so excited about this. Why? Because he had found that 4.0 solution to a very pedestrian task. And shockingly, that 4.0 solution is not that much more expensive than some of the high-end vacuum cleaners. Oh yeah, there are high-end vacuum cleaners. I used to sell them. And one of the things you'll know, if you know anything about me, I've had every job known to humankind. And among them, I used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door. Nothing sucks like an Electrolux. And the interesting thing about that was that was a very much early industrial revolution solution. Now, Work 4.0, people should be looking to the future. How can we adapt what's already new toward our existing problems? Or how can we come up with a completely new solution. Those are the 4.0 answers. That's where we need to be going. And there are 5 steps to get there. We're going to walk through those 5 in the next 20 minutes. By the way, as I ramble, which I do, I'm very gifted at that. As I ramble, if something comes up where you're like, wait, Carl, back up a notch. Could you re-explain this? Or could you explain what you meant by that? Just pop it into the chat or the questions interface, and Wendy will make sure that it gets brought up to the top of the heap here. So I'm more than happy to answer those as I go. But the first thing we need to be doing is identifying what it is that we really do. And I want you to look at these 2 questions. Let's take a look. And I'm going to be your psychic friend. How do you really spend your day? What takes up your time? I see it now. Email and meetings. Oh my gosh. Those were supposed to be 4.0 solutions, not problems. Yeah, they were. Email. How do you really spend your day? No, I didn't get it. Please don't CC everyone on this. CC all. Oh, no. Yeah. How do you really spend your day? Well, that's a big question. If you can identify these things, these are the ones, these are kind of the big wins that we should be seeking to knock down first if we're going to be truly 4.0. If we're going to be 4.0 compliant, if we're going to be in the future, as it were, the first thing you've got to do is identify what is sucking up the lion's share of your life energy. That's the first step to actually using 4.0 to your own advantage. I happen to be the risk guy. Now, the risk guy, risk registers. Risk registers are very much kind of a, if you will, a 3.0 kind of solution. You build them out in Excel spreadsheets, you build them out in traditional spreadsheets, and then you actually analyze them and work from there. The 4.0 solution is when we have a system by which as events evolve, the system automatically sends up warnings, heads up, here's a problem. We identify what we do first. How do you spend your day? Well, I spend my day in risk, which means I spend my day in the risk register, which means that I need to find the automation solutions, the adaptations for risk models, and for the risk register that actually are going to advance the cause, that are going to take us in the right direction. Then we have to find alternatives. Alternatives, and notice I didn't say alternatives, just alternatives. Find 3 different ways to make this happen. Hey, if you're on Netflix, by the way, if you have Netflix, let me suggest to you there's a show that I've learned to love on Netflix. It's called Magic for Humans. Magic for Humans. And it was interesting because the host, Justin Willman, the magician, was actually trying to convince children to give up their smartphones. He was trying to get them to give up your oh, please. Trying to separate some of us from our smartphone can't be done. But he was trying to convince them that that was a good idea. And the way he did that was by using the cans and strings. Some of you from your childhood remember cans and strings. You would take 2 clean, empty cans. You would punch a hole in the bottom of each one. You would tie a string between the 2. You'd pull them taut, and you would talk through the can to the party at the other end. It was your cheap little fake phone. Well, that was an alternative that he tried to sell them on. They weren't excited about that, so he tried something different. He did the exact same concept, but he used garbage cans and rope, which was very cool. Anyhow, there's a long trick that goes on in there. But what was intriguing was he was trying to get people to think yesterday, but at the same time to bring it up to a new level, to take it to something different. So ask yourself the question, when you've identified the thing that bugs you most, you want to look for at least 3 alternatives. How could it be changed in terms of the environment? Email. Do you know if you want to get somebody's attention? There was a Business Week study that answered that question. You want to get somebody's attention. You want to truly shock them. with a communications event, you want to make them go, wow. Send them a U.S. Postal Service letter. Oh, I know it's slow. I know it's a big deal, but think about it. Think about how shocked you are when you get a handwritten U.S. Postal Service letter with a real stamp up in the corner. It's always kind of a, oh, wow, and you open it up and it's a letter. I never get letters anymore. It's an alternative approach, and it isn't necessarily an e-approach. But then we have to start asking, are there ways in which we can leverage this? Are there ways we can change the outcome? Are there ways in which we can change the total tactic for which we're doing this? You want to look at what are the alternatives? What are the different rows you can hoe? For the Roomba, for that problem, my wife and I found a different solution. We bought a 100-year-old home with nothing but wood floors. We don't need a vacuum cleaner. There, we changed the environment. All we had to do was buy a home that was built 100 years ago. Actually, 1924 was when the home was built. It's almost to its centenary. But the point being, it's a different approach. It's a different tactic for dealing with the same old problem. And then ask yourself the question, are there different ways to tackle this using the existing solutions? Is there a 4.0 solution? But be careful. The wrong technology will bury you. Some people want to bury everything in technology. I had a recent problem. I could not look in my Windows Explorer, in my File Explorer, and see what images were in all of my Windows Metafile, WMF files. All I could see was just the icon and the name of the file, but I couldn't actually tell what they were images of. Now, there are different solutions, and I found a host of different solutions, by the way. The interesting thing was, though, some of them were clearly WordStar. Now, some of you don't even remember WordStar. I was a news guy before I got into project management. I was the news director at WASH Radio in Washington, D.C. And in that job, we used the news version of WordStar called NewsStar. We would actually, this is 1987. Wow, the dark ages of computing. Oh yeah, stone knives, bearskins, and NewsStar. That was pretty much it. We were dealing with the old solution. Now there was Word. There was WordPerfect. And the organization had opted for NewsStar. Well, that was a 4.0 solution. But it was a bad 4.0 solution. NewsStar only lasted about a year. That was it. And then they moved over to other technologies. When you're trying to ascertain, have I found the right solution for this? Have I found the right data augmentation or integration kind of solution? Have I found the right answer? There are little tests you can use to actually make that determination, to actually make that call. If there are no other adopters, if you can't find others who are using it like a religion, it might be the wrong solution. If learning it is daunting, now some of you, we've got about 60 people on the call right now, kind of interesting, some of you probably, and I'm sorry if this is you, some of you are probably dealing with or using as your project management software, Primavera, a high-end, beautiful, wonderful tool that's been around since the dawn of project management. Just one problem. The learning curve on Primavera is insanely steep. It really is. And that actually keeps a lot of players out of it. As a result, that's a good thing, because if that's one of our objectives, to keep the players out of it, we win. If one of our objectives is to have others come in and play with us in the tool, we lose. We need to understand what our real objectives are before we can be truly 4.0. And the other warning sign, if you go searching for it and you don't see a lot of Google hits on it, if you don't see a lot of YouTube videos on it, you may be looking at NewsStar. You may be looking at something that's, well, a little bit passé, something that's not quite today's technology. One of the keys to being 4.0 in anything is to look at what are the techs that are out there today. There have been a host of different risk tools that have been out there since I started into the practice. And it's noteworthy that some of them have evolved very nicely through the years. The good examples are the Monte Carlo tools. The Monte Carlo tools have done a great job of adapting from generation to generation and constantly bringing new capabilities into the fold. Some, however, some of the risk tools that are out there, the preloaded risk registers and such, frankly, they die on the vine. They're not that good. They really don't offer that much. We should be looking for what have other people found and said, this is great. So we want to ask that question. We then want to make sure that there aren't any warning signs, and then we're ready to become an acolyte. There's a hand-raising feature, and let me pull up my list of attendees. Do any of you have the Ring doorbell? Do any of you have the Ring doorbell? Can I just get a quick show of hands if you have the Ring doorbell? Just looking down. Wow, no ringers. Oh, there you are, Raymond. Yay! You're my hero. Thank you. Okay. Now, it's interesting, and Raymond, you're going to be my guinea pig for all this. Just so you know, the people who have them swear by them. They are believers. These are people who are true acolytes in every sense of the word. They have their Ring doorbell, and they'll tell you 27 different ways that you really desperately need a Ring doorbell. Some of you use the Waze app, W-A-Z-E. Some of you use that app. That's a 4.0 tech, social GPS. Yeah. There are other ways that people use social GPS besides just giving and getting directions. Oh, Helena, you're one of those people as well. Very cool to be you. Now, a simple question: it's interesting. Raymond said, "Yeah, I've got the Ring doorbell, and my house is 300 years old." That's kind of a scary thing. But are there other ways you can leverage your Ring doorbell? Are there other ways to make that work? And if you want to go ahead and type that down in the Q&A interface, that'd be a great thing because I get a chance to see those. So if you want to just explain, are there other ways that you could use the Ring technology? For those of you who have never seen Ring technology, it's a doorbell, and when it rings, it goes straight to your cell phone. It goes directly to your cell phone, and you can actually see who's at the door. You can... Elena's like, my doorbell still works after 30 years. Thank you very much. Yeah. But the point being that when you're looking at these technologies, it's not just about what they can do for you right now, but it's about, are there other ways that we can actually leverage them? This is what 4.0 is. The whole idea behind 4.0, whenever anybody comes to you and says, oh, the organization is moving over to WordStar, you're just like, no, no, no. Well, if you're a true acolyte, if you're a believer in whatever tech they have adopted, a 4.0 person will say, okay, how are the 1,000,001 ways that I can leverage this? My son, my 28-year-old son, is a truck driver. He drives the big rigs out of the Port of Baltimore. And an interesting thing about this young man, up until 2 weeks ago, he did not have Waze. He didn't have Waze. He finally broke down. I got to be his acolyte. I got to explain to him a dozen different ways that you can use Waze, that you can use and leverage the app. And I found that terribly exciting. I really did. It's one of those things that you have the opportunity, you have the chance to actually preach a gospel that is worthwhile if you know the tech, if you respect the tech, and if you're looking at the future of it, not the present of it. That means to one degree or another, you must become fearless. Take a look. Pioneers, settlers, and town planners. Oh, now the sad thing is, some of you are actually young enough. You don't remember this screenshot, and it makes me cry. It's from an early video game called Oregon Trail. Yeah. You have died of dysentery. That was like the classic death in Oregon Trail. You get almost all the way out there, out to the far, far west, and then you'd cark because you died of dysentery. Now, that was because on the Oregon Trail, these people were pioneers. They were setting out the new path. People die as pioneers. Somebody in my news organization way back when in the 80s said, News Star, ooh, we should spend thousands on this and make everybody adopt it. Well, just so you know, the person who led that early charge, that pioneer, died of dysentery. Not really, but he was no longer with the organization not long after that implementation. Instead, we should take the attitude of, particularly in a 4.0 universe, of being the settlers. That's who we want to be. That's who we want to be. Because pioneers, well, frankly, they're dangerous people. They're out there and they are facing the unknown. Settlers are facing the unknown with information informed from the pioneers. Yeah, we had to have somebody out there dying early for all that to work. But some of you are now adopting electric cars. Right now in the electric car business, you're a settler. Yeah, a lot of the pioneering has already been done. A lot of the pioneering has been forged for you. It's a 4.0 solution now. But the beauty of it is we can use it to leverage other things. Your Ring doorbell. How could you use that in project management? Your Waze app. How could you use that in ways besides just to get from point A to point B? All the answers to all of these questions are the ones that drive us into a 4.0 world. Your risk registers, your risk models. How can we build them so that we don't have to check them every day? They check themselves and they come back to us and go, Houston, we have a problem. That's when we're arriving as 4.0 folks. That's when we're actually getting where we ought to be. That's the answer when it comes to 4.0, is to look for those fearless solutions. And yeah, sometimes it's going to take us not into the future, but it's going to take us into the past. The amazing thing about most 4.0 effective solutions, somebody looked backward and said, you know, it used to be a lot simpler. We used to only have to do this. When they answered that question, they were then able to say, okay, here's how I can dress this up in modern garb. The best risk example I have for you is Henry Ford. Yeah, that Henry Ford, the one who created the Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford used to have a way of dealing with people who were in a panic. And the way he used to deal with people who were in panic, they come into his office and go, Mr. Ford, we have a crisis. He'd go, great, write it up in a memo, put it on my desk, and I'll get back to you in 3 days. 3 days? No, it's a crisis. It's got to be solved now. And he used to say, no, 3 days, or fix it yourself. And he'd kick him out of his office. That was his 2.0 solution to that particular problem. Fast forward to a 4.0 world, welcome to the land of email. You know, an auto reply email that says, I am currently unavailable and won't be able to get back to you for 3 days would put a lot of people into a panic. Some people would get that email, however, and go, well, crap, guess I'll have to fix this myself. Oh, what do you know? Congratulations. You looked to the past, you looked to Henry Ford, you found the solution, you updated it 4.0. Well done. That's the real key here, is to make sure that you're looking not just forward to how can I modify this to make it even better, but look to the past. And the pains that people have experienced in the past, in many cases, are the same pains we're facing today. And the solutions, while they're 4.0 today, we should look at how they were solved back then, because in a lot of cases, that allows us to be settlers rather than pioneers. And it avoids the whole, well, dysentery thing. So with that, I'm down to the end of my presentation, but we have about 3 minutes left for any questions, concerns, problems, issues. So Wendy, I will hand the baton back to you.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, anyone that has questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A or chat function.
Oh, how should a self-employed leverage and drive a 4.0 solution in business processes? The fundamental rule, as with all things project management, keep it simple. You know, the scary thing about Waze is it has a million features. And some people jump in and want to learn every feature and get completely overwhelmed. Let me suggest to you, not the right move. Instead, find one asset, one thing you can improve. One thing, if you've got this 4.0 tool that has everything loaded into it, bite your tongue, hold your place, and just solve one tiny problem for them with it. Then they should start to question, ooh, are there other ways I can leverage this? Otherwise, what you're going to do is overwhelm people, freak them out. First time I got instruction on using WordPerfect. Yeah, this is all like ancient tech. WordPerfect. Somebody sat down and tried to walk me through everything in WordPerfect, which was a rather robust tool at the time. I freaked. And I was not ready to become an acolyte. Why? Because they gave me too much. The thing about 4.0, where we really win, is when we get it to do the simplest stuff. When you can just get your Roomba to run around the floor and clean things up. Just once. Once you get them to do that, you win. That's when you have the victories, particularly as a self-employed independent consultant.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't see any. I'll go through a few reminders, and then we can check back and see if any other questions have come in. The PDU code for today's webinar will be sent to you via email to the email you used to register for the webinar. If you would like to become a premium member of the Great IT Professional, please visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Premium membership is $199 per year. It does allow you unlimited anytime access to the online library, including over 1,000 free PDU hours. If you'd like to try out our mobile app, please go to greatpro.org/mobile. And let me check. I don't see any other questions unless any have come to you directly, Carl.
No, but if I might, let me just stress, that's my email address. If something came up, you didn't want to share it in the chat folder just because you're a little concerned about public exposure, fine. That's my email address, and as Wendy can attest, I will always get back to you within 24 hours, always.
Yep, great. Thank you, Carl. And actually, one more question. How can Industry 4.0 benefit my company?
Oh, it's a matter of if you're not using 4.0, if you're not leveraging and showing people that you are current, you're behind the times. It was kind of alarming. I had somebody say to me, I'm not sure we can bring you into our organization because, well, frankly, we're mostly millennials. And I said, yeah, and I'm kind of a late boomer. And they said, yeah, that's kind of why we're concerned. The key is, and this applies to me in that universe as well, and that is if you are keeping up with the latest technology, if you are keeping an eye on what people are talking, how people are talking, and what tools they're using, you're a 4.0 winner. That's how you actually get there, and that's the big advantage. If, by contrast, you decide, well, I'm going to kind of stay in the back and let everybody else march forward, and once it becomes universally adopted, then I'll jump on board, then you're an also-ran, and that puts you in a very poor business position strategically. You want to be there early, but not so early that you die of dysentery.
Great. Thank you, Carl. And as he mentioned, please feel free to reach out at carl@carlpritchard.com. If you have questions on the Great IT Professional, you can reach me at wendy.nolan@cai.io. So that does conclude our webinar for today. On behalf of Carl and CAI's Great IT Professional Educational Program, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We hope to see you at future events. And Carl, thanks so much for sharing your time and knowledge with all of us today.
Thank you.